Hi, and good afternoon. I'd like to welcome you to Poem Praise 2, and peace be upon you. We are going to move right along in breaking the chains of psychological slavery. We are now in the section entitled Evidence of Things Unseen, and it goes as such. Probably the single most important quality used in the act of achieving physical liberation from slavery was the inner power to believe that freedom was possible. It took a strong, compelling belief that even though you could not see freedom and how to reach it, you knew it was possible and you were willing to confront all odds to obtain it. This is the power of faith. And it was the power of faith that took Harriet Tubman back and forth on her many trips on the Underground Railroad. It was faith that permitted the thousands who ran away and took their freedom and endured the dangers and the obstacles to reach their goal. It was faith that sustained those who did not run away to keep their spirit and dignity intact until physical freedom was achieved. It was faith that kept the brutalized slaves from not giving up. In such the same way, faith is necessary to achieve mental freedom as well. The faith that we are describing does not apply to any particular religious expression. Even though all religions are based on faith and are intended to cultivate faith, the faith must be a basis sense that everything will be all right. No matter how things might appear, whether this certainty comes from belief in a supreme being or in a process like karma, the person looking to obtain mental freedom must find something to give them a sense of faith that everything will be all right. This sense may come directly from a belief in the new consciousness and the freedom it will bring, and a conviction that no matter how hard the battle, the progress towards removing the chains is worth it. I am certain that many physical slaves made the fight to freedom just on the basis of faith that anything would be better than captivity. And this faith was strong enough to sustain them in their struggle for liberation. Without a strong faith in something bigger than your master and yourself, there is no way to engage in the struggle that is necessary to achieve freedom. As we have stated above, it is faith that provides a shield from our fears. It is the belief that everything will be all right, that feeds the courage we describe as being so necessary in obtaining this mental freedom. It is through the power of faith that the mentally enslaved person can, in the image of Samson, break the chains which confine us. This is another of those instances where qualities we already have can be transformed to serve the purpose of our freedom. If our faith is already in a concept of God, who has dominion over all things, then like Harriet Tubman, Nat Turner, and many others, we can use the faith we already have to sustain us in our efforts to get free. Now, if that faith is in the God of the chains, or in the God of the person who put us in the chains, then of course, that faith will do you no good in getting free. In fact, it was that kind of faith which made many slaves fear to take their freedom, or even to believe that freedom was in violation of God. Such can also be the case in seeking mental freedom. Of course, it is particularly difficult when the slave believes his chains are decreed by God. And God then has become the chains. In the next chapter, we will discuss the impact of religious images on our psychology. We will further analyze the potential dilemma created by faith in alien images. Faith must be acquired from within. This is very much an individual task, which must be accomplished by drawing upon the example and the inspiration of those who have faith. We can be taught about faith by those who have faith, by those who know faith. But each of us must explore our inner self to discover the power of faith. We must be willing to search for the belief in a power higher than circumstance, and to locate this evidence of things unseen. One of the great discoveries which come from gaining information about who we are as African people is the overwhelming and convincing evidence that faith has been the sustaining force which has brought us to where we are. Where other people may point to material or intellectual resources, our power has been in our spiritual resources. And it is this realization that helps us to discover the power of faith and our potential for faith, even if we have not yet discovered it. The task of breaking the chains of mental slavery requires a great deal of faith. Faith gives us the patience to stick to the job of looking for our own reality. It gives us the determination to overcome the hold of the chains of the plantation mind, which tend to increase their grip as we seek to free ourselves. Since the situation of slavery created such a void of information about the African reality and so effectively erased the African consciousness, then it requires a great deal of faith to pursue the restoration of this awareness. As we mentioned above, the ever-present opposition, which says to the fleeing mental slave, there is no reality other than the European American consciousness, requires faith to keep us seeking and building. Requires faith to keep us seeking and building. Certainly, it is faith that sustains us in the fear and loneliness of this lifelong search to help restore who we are. To help restore who we are. Now, when I think about that word restore who we are, it's already there. We already have it. But when you restore something, come on, flow with me for the word of R-E-S-T-O-R-E. When you restore something, just think about, how can I make it plain to you real quick? When you have something that goes through a restoration and you restore something, it's already there, you already have it. It may be something like, let's say it's an old car, for example. Then you restore it. It's still old, but then once you start doing the restoration to it, it starts to look new. Oh my goodness, look at that. Buff it, shine it. So therefore, got to study. We read in this book with certainly helpful information. May it certainly, the seed that's in you start to get a little flicker like, uh-oh, I remember that. I hear that. Okay, I can do it. Yes, you can. Oh, yes, you can. Now, I'm going to give you the preview of our next section, and then we'll be done with chapter 2. The next section of this chapter is Let's Get to Work. Let's get to work. And then we're going to be in chapter 3, which the title of chapter 3 is Racial, Religious Imagery, and Psychological Confusion. And on that note, stay tuned because I will be hollering at you real soon here on Poem Praise 2. And until then, be blessed. Later, y'all.